Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Warm welcome to everyone here in the room and watching at home, I guess. First order of business is to approval of our agenda. Has everyone had a chance to read it? No issues? If there isn't, I'd ask for mover and seconder to approve them. And I'm assuming we're all right with first name basis. Approved by, or moved by Dave, second by Jen. No discussion, all in favor? That carries, thank you. Adoptions of minutes from last meeting, again. Everyone had a chance to take a look at them? No errors? Mover and seconder, please. Jen, moved by Jen, second by Dave. We'll take turns. All in favor, please. And that's carried, thank you. I will remind everyone disclosure of pecuniary interests and general nature thereof. I see no one wiggling, so I take there isn't any. Delegations, and we do have one. Sylvia Bellico, our regional coordinator, Central Region, Tetra Society of North America. Warm welcome. When the floor is yours, whenever you're ready. Welcome.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Sarah, for arranging this and for the committee allowing me the time to present the Tetra Society. We were at your resource fair and are really grateful that we have this opportunity. So I'm going to share my screen right away. I've been with the Tetra Society for 24 years. I started as a volunteer myself. I still volunteer today as well. So let me tell you a little bit about the Tetra Society. It started back in 1987 by a gentleman named Sam Sullivan. He had a skiing accident that left him a quadriplegic. And instead of calling it the Quadriplegic Society, he took the Greek word tetra for four affected limbs and called it the Tetra Society. So what do? Well, we take local volunteers and we build really cool things for clients with a disability. So here's Jim on the right here. He plays bocce competitively, and you can see that we built him a rack for his bocce balls and also a handle on his wheelchair so he doesn't fall when he tosses his ball. And he just finished last week. He came in second place, so he got silver last week. So we are a nonprofit. I do all the fundraising here in Ontario, and it's, like I said, volunteer based, and there's no cost of labor at all because they give of their time and their skills. So we're right across Canada. Here's an antiquated map, but at least it has some dots where some of our chapters are. We have 40 chapters across the country, from St. John's to Victoria. And we also have now a chapter in Thunder Bay, so way up north. But it doesn't matter really where you live. We will ship and figure out how to make a device for you. And I forgot to mention, if you have questions, you can either hang on to them or ask me anytime. I'll stop here in a couple of slides and maybe ask if you have any questions. So what do we address? We address everything in life, everything from personal daily living things like toothbrushes, making them accessible, hairbrushes, all the way down to sports and hobbies, anything for work, school, play, anything you have a barrier with. If you go to our website, we do have a Tetra base there where we have about 2,000 of our 9,000 projects listed there. You can't buy them, but you can go and look sort of the past projects we've done, and you'll notice that no two of them are alike. So how do you get a device made? It's quite easy. We have an online form that you can fill out. You don't need a referral from a doctor or an occupational therapist. You just need to be the client, or your therapist can fill it out. It doesn't really matter. And if you cannot use a computer, you can call our 1-800 number and we will assist to fill out the form. So you don't need to know the solution. You only need to know what your barrier is, and we will take it on from there. So this is what our website looks like. There's 3 buttons there. The middle one is if you want assistance, of course. The left is if you want to look at some of our past projects. And of course, on the right, the heart is to donate. So if you are a client and you're requesting assistance, this is what the form looks like. It just asks you for your name, your email address, your phone number, how we can get in contact with you, and what your issue is. So it's not very complicated. Once you push the submit button, things start to happen. I contact you and let you know the nearest chapter to where you live and who will be taking care of you. And then the chapter coordinator there will take over and assign a volunteer, and then it'll just be the client and the volunteer working together. If the client wishes to have an occupational therapist, a doctor, a neighbor, their parents, anybody can be involved in the project. The client drives the project from the beginning right to the end. We want the client to have a voice. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about here. So the client starts out by filling out the form. They direct the design. Once we have approval from the client for the design, the volunteer goes ahead and builds the project. And then afterwards, once it is installed, the client gives us feedback. And if we have to return a few times to tweak it, to fix it, repair it, update it, we've been with some clients for over 20 years already. So we stick with you. Any questions till now? Then I'll just carry on and go right through. So these are some of the projects I just wanted to show you. This will give you an overview of all the different areas we cover. So we do accessible cribs. You can buy these, they're about $5,000 US. But once the client buys an IKEA crib, we can modify it for about $300, which is a huge difference to a client. We also attach all kinds of things to wheelchairs, walkers, strollers. We never drill into the frame of anything because that will nullify the warranty. So we clamp on cell phones, drinking cups, tablets, tables, umbrellas, you name it. We do bocce ball ramps. This one is a manual one. It can go up and down, it can twist left and right, and the gate can be opened by hand, by foot. And we've also done electronic, which we have one child pushing the button with his tongue. So it's a very accurate bocce ball ramp. This lady here goes to work in Toronto and she wanted to take her child to daycare. So we made her a stroller. We had to talk to the Toronto Transit System to make sure that it was allowed on their buses. And she just unhooks it when she gets to the daycare and then picks her child up and simply hooks it back to her wheelchair to go home with her child. We do domino holders, card holders. We modify toys, games. Here we simply added a ring to a washing machine so a quadriplegic could use his T-stick to turn and do his own laundry. This lady here has MS and she uses canes to walk, but using canes and pushing a stroller is impossible. The stroller kept pulling her down. So our two volunteers on the right, they're from Guelph. They took a walker and they inverted it because it has handbrakes. And so now the client can hold on and walk steadily. And she can also slow down or stop the stroller when she's on a hill or a grade so that it doesn't pull her down and tip the stroller over. It can also be very easily unclipped so that the father on the left there can also take the stroller out without using the attachment. We have a lot of these going on, especially now that the winter is coming. We have a lot of people that do wheelchair racing and they want to keep up over the winter so they can use this in their garage or in their basement to make the bike stationary. This was a project in London, a kayak for a paraplegic client. They put a new seat in for her. They made a bench for her. I'll put it to the next screen. You can see the bench here that she transfers into the kayak. And then you can see on the right, they have these pontoons that they attach so that the kayak doesn't tip over and in the water she goes. So no problem kayaking. This was a great project in Peel. The client came from Arano Kids. The truck was purchased by the Kiwanis Club, and the Tetra volunteers pulled out the brakes, the gas, the steering wheel, and the seat. As this little boy can only move the wrist and his fingers on his right hand. He's never moved on his own in his entire life. He's 6 years old. And they put everything into a joystick on his right side there. So for the first time, he can play with his brother now on the driveway and move around on his own accord. It's a pretty cool project. Whoop. This project here is for a big grown-up child. He had an ATV. He's a quadriplegic and he wanted to use this ATV on his farm. And so on the left, our volunteers made a ramp that is push button that the client can lower and raise on his own. In the center picture, you see his power wheelchair is locked into a floor system, so he can't roll around inside the vehicle. And on the right, you can see barely, but there's two silver handles that come up that have all the controls. as hand controls now, so gas, brake, lights, horn, etc. And then they had to raise the roll cage, the black frame, up higher to accommodate his his new toy. And we had a great video of him laughing as he drove it out of their shop. So that was a great project as well. And this client is actually turning around and turning his farm into an accessible playground, I guess you can call it, for adults. So he's going to have target practice. He's going to have a couple of ATVs. He's going to have some other games that people can play in wheelchairs. So I think that's amazing. This is a video here. We're getting into home automation a lot, so I thought I would show you. We voice activated his sliding door. And for the first time, the client can go out onto his balcony on his own accord. So I thought that was pretty cool to show you. We don't have to watch him going out. So here's Sam Sullivan. I don't know, maybe you know him. He turned into the mayor, or became the mayor of Vancouver. And on the left is a picture of him after they had the Olympics. He had to pass the flag on to the next country. And on his wheelchair is a Tetra flag holding device we had to make because he couldn't hold the flag on his own accord. So we were on the world stage as well. So if you know anyone as well, we take technical volunteers, anything from a handy person, someone who likes to tinker, to former clients. We have clients, the gentleman you just saw in that automated sliding door project, he is an outreach volunteer for us, and he just spreads the word about Tetra and what we do. But we can use students, we can give them volunteer hours for their school. Really, we don't turn anyone away who wants to volunteer. And like I said, the London Community Foundation supports us as well, and as well as other foundations. That's my contact information, which I can give to Sarah. And these are just some of our websites. Our Facebook page is really good because we share from all societies, MS Society, Spinal Cord Injury Society, and all our projects that we complete in the province. So that's it for me. If anyone has any questions. Oh, I forgot to mention, sorry. Each project the client wants has a budget of $500 for material and volunteer mileage. If the project goes over $500, we find the funding. So each project costs nothing to the client, zero. And they can have as many projects as they want. So you don't get much free, especially with a disability. And I know that because my brother was a quadriplegic for 37 years. And my brother-in-law just became a paraplegic through back surgery last year. So we haven't had much luck in this family, and we understand exactly where you're coming from. He was actually on the accessibility committee in Burlington. So we really appreciate the work that all your committees do, including yours. So I will stop talking.
Sylvia, you know, it's a bit of a gloomy day here and steadily outside getting a little bit colder, but you just kind of brightened it up. It was quite inspiring. So I want to personally thank you for sharing what you did today. You know, I think most of us want to do good things, and we have to create the awareness. So you've helped that a lot today. But for me personally, thank you. I'm going to open the floor to the rest if they want to make a comment.
Thank you very much for that very informative presentation. And I'm going to be checking out your website just to see other things that you guys might be involved with. But just speaking from, I guess, my own personal background here is I got a few friends that have recently retired, and they are problem solvers. If I was to have them do I have them contact you directly, or do they go through the Tetra Society? I haven't mentioned it to them yet, so I don't want to mention their names, but you know, one was a programmer and a designer, and the other one is a farmer, and God knows farmers can fix anything. So
yeah, we really need volunteers, and there is no minimum hours. The only minimum requirement we have is that they work on one project, either in a group or themselves, a year. They can go on vacation when they want. They can work as little or as much as they wish. So it's a really great kind of program. It's very simple. They can contact me directly, or they can go on the website and just register. So it's a little form to fill out with their information. And once they register, They have a 50-minute phone call sort of interview with our head office onboarding team, and there's only 2 people in our head office, so it's not like we spend a lot of money on that. They have to have a vulnerable sector check, which Tetra will pay for through the police department. That's for volunteering. And once they have that, we can place them in a chapter.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. We've
All
done,
right.
sorry, heated wheelchair blankets. I mean, I can't, toys we've retrofitted. I can't show you everything we've done, but there's nothing we've ever turned away, so.
One final thank you, Sylvia. It's actually been quite inspiring, so appreciate you
Excellent.
being here today.
And I thank you for your time.
Okay, all the best. All right. We have a motion here. I'm looking to accept and receive and file the reports, presentation from the Tetra Society. Be received and filed. So moved by Dave, second by Jen, I hope. Yes. All in favor? That's carried. Sarah, very informative. I really enjoyed that. So thank you for setting that up. I assume you're the one responsible for it. So good job. Reports, briefings, accessibility coordinator, Elgin County and its LMP's joint diversity, equity and inclusion plan 2024-26. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I have the attached report here. I'm just going to walk through it a little bit. Hopefully you guys have had a chance to take a look at it, but basically this is the first joint diversity, equity and inclusion plan that we have created with Elgin County and its local municipal partners. So the plan is going to span 2024 to 2026. The intention was to start off with something a little bit smaller so that we can kind of see how things go. And then in 2026, we can talk about expanding the number of years in the plan. So the purpose of it is basically to have the advisory committee review it and give any input if you have any to give. And basically the intention of it is to reflect best practices, and it is comparable to some of the goals and initiatives that have been completed on DEI across other municipalities in Ontario. There is no specific legislation. So unlike accessibility, which has a lot of legislative oversight, there isn't something specific that requires us to create this, but it is something that I've noticed a lot more municipalities have been doing lately. So that was kind of the inspiration behind why we decided to create the plan. So just for some context, sorry, give me a second, I lost my page. Makes me click through it instead of just going down one. Okay. Where am I? All right. So I've just kind of outlined a little bit about what the plan entails. I'll just briefly touch on that, and then I will turn it over to everybody to see if there's any feedback. So basically the first part of the plan, of course, you can see this is the title page and then the table of content. We did include a section on decolonization and reconciliation. This is basically just recognizing that we will continue to collaborate with Indigenous communities and partners and advance mutual DEI goals. We also note our commitment to the calls to action, and we also make a mention that there is a land acknowledgement statement. I do know local municipal partners have this as well. The purpose section, it talks about why we created the plan and how we are dedicated to responding and eliminating patterns of just systemic discrimination, and also to ensure the needs of all of our residents are met across the county. It also includes some overarching objectives for the plan. The statement of commitment section basically talks about creating a workspace environment and community that's diverse, equitable, and inclusive. And it talks about the main aims of the DEI plan and how we will achieve it. The DEI plan does act as a framework. So it does outline a lot of the information, both in terms of what DEI is, why it's important, but also in terms of the specific goals that each municipality has set. The scope is just about who it applies to. The legislative authority section just kind of mentions some legislation that could be seen as relevant to the plan, but again, it's not something that's a requirement. So it basically just indicates different types of legislation that we want to be mindful of when it comes to DEI initiatives and goals. The plan coordination talks about how this kind of plan came to be and the process that we took for creating it. And implementation, of course, is how we're going to implement it. We have a section on evaluating, reporting, and outcomes, basically just on how we'll communicate it and and outlines the protected grounds, which is under the Ontario Human Rights Code. And it also talks about DEI progress reports and different DEI topics. We talk about the outcomes and how we're going to measure that. And then the overview of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So basically this includes things like why it matters, statistics for Canada, Ontario, a demographic profile for Elgin County, applying it at work, the benefits of DEI in the workplace, and it also notes the CSA psychological health and safety standard commitment. There is also some potential challenges that we can see and how we would address those. So DEI training, I've also noted a list of different topics that we could potentially train on. I do have screened some online free DEI related training. I have circulated this. I will recirculate it. It's not included in the plan, but it will be kind of like supplemental. So for any of the municipalities that are interested, they can go through that list and pick specific training. It's free and it's fully online. So the sections for the progress and goals, this is where we have what I would say is probably the most important information, which is basically all of the goals. The progress and the goals that have been laid out for the county, and the county was broken down also by its department. I will note legal and POA has not yet submitted theirs, so we're still waiting on that, but that should be coming in soon. However, the rest of the local municipalities have completed their sections, which is great. And then the last part here is just communication and contact information. Talks about how people can provide feedback, compliance, where you can locate the local municipality's website. And it also talks about how we can provide the document in an alternative accessible format and or with communication supports upon request. So that is basically the main, that's kind of like a summary of the plan. I don't know that we really need to go through the rest of the report per se, mostly just that it will be looked at by you guys, and then upon approval, we'll go to county council. And then from there, we'll go to local municipal partners councils to be received and approved and then implemented. And of course, timeline wise, we should be good to have it implemented before 2024, which is great. So yeah, turn it back over to the chair in case there are any questions.
Thank you, Sarah. Open up the floor if there are any questions. I took the opportunity this afternoon and read it. There's a lot of good information in there. A lot of stuff that makes sense. Sometimes you need to be reminded of it. I have no problems with open the floor. Getting nods. Okay, I think you're getting approval there. Are we ready to? I should have Jenna read it. Yeah.
Be it resolved that the report titled Elgin County and its LMP's Joint Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Plan 2024 to 2026, dated November 7th, 2023, from the Accessibility Coordinator be reviewed and forwarded to Council for approval.
Thank you. I'll look for mover and seconder. Moved by Dave, second by Jen. And again, I think it's a report is well done, so I don't think we need a lot of discussion. We do have acceptance, so I will call the vote. All in favor? And that's passed unanimously, which is good news. What's our next one? Accessibility Coordinator. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, so the next part is the accessibility policies. So this actually started quite a while back, and it kind of just got put on hold for a little bit, which is ultimately a good thing because I ended up making quite a few more changes the second time that I went through it. So the intention is really just to ensure that these policies remain up to date with best practices. So the main policies that pretty much all municipalities will have is the accessibility policy. The accommodations in the workplace policy, and then some will also have an emergency workplace response for employees with disabilities policies, while others have decided to include it into their accommodation or accessibility policies. So in Elgin County's case, we do have all three. And so the information in the report is basically just an overview of the recommended changes and updates that I made to these policies. I will say for the accessibility policy in particular, it's quite extensive. So one of the main things that I wanted to do was to align the different sections of the accessibility policy with the integrated accessibility standards regulation. So that is what governs a lot of the information that we have to include in the policy. And my thought process was that it would be better if we could kind of follow it under each section, so that if someone who is looking at the legislation and wants to find what Elgin County is doing specifically to meet that criteria, they can look in the policy and it'll be in the same format, basically, in same order as the legislation. So the requirements, of course, like I mentioned, are set out by the IASR and also the AOGA. So for the accessibility policy, some of the changes that were made, I won't necessarily read everything in detail, but I'll just give a more quick summary. So I included a purpose section. I also updated the statement of commitment section. We are explicitly required to have a statement of commitment, so I wanted to change the wording to reflect that. I added a legislative authority section so that it's easy to find the different legislation that oversees these requirements. Scope on who it's applied to, expanded the definition section to include other relevant terms. I reorganized the sections, like I mentioned, to align better with the IASR. I updated and added different sections under each of the sections in the IASR, so they now match. So there's general requirements, there's information and communication, employment, I think it's trying to follow it along, design of public spaces, and then customer service. We don't have transportation in Elgin County, like we don't offer a transportation service at this time. So that section is not in our policy. In the future, if there was any changes to that, then we would expand that section. I've also added a section on compliance to indicate the importance of adhering to all legislative requirements. And of course, there was a section already included, or actually, no, sorry, it was a new section included for contact information and supporting documents. For the emergency workplace response for employees with disabilities policy, this is basically one that there was a bit of a debate as to whether or not we should keep this policy. It is an internal one, and we ultimately decided that we would keep it on hand, but not necessarily put it as like an orientation requirement, because I kind of expanded the emergency response section in the accessibility policy to cover what, most people would need to know. And then in the event that somebody was hired and was interested in either learning more about it and or is a person with disability, we would make sure that they had a copy of this policy. So it's a little bit more expansive as to what they would need to do to get a emergency response plan put in place. So for this one, it's basically just discussing who's involved and what to do in an emergency situation, and what essentially the process is for setting up an individualized plan. So some of the changes here basically just includes, again, adding a statement of commitment, expanding the definition section. I did expand the roles and responsibilities section, so I wanted to include a few more people that could be involved in that process. I added the manager responsibilities, department staff responsibilities, and maintenance responsibilities. So again, maintenance, for example, is just a good one to kind of touch on, because this is more so, how we keep the building up to code, how we make sure the building is free of any hazards that could possibly pose barriers in the event of an emergency and things like that. It could be as simple as like making sure our posters are accessible for staff, because we don't necessarily have explicit requirements around printed posters. So yeah, just things like that, how we make sure our emergency information is in an accessible format as well. So expanded the procedures for designated persons to kind of talk a little bit more about the responsibilities, like needing to delegate if they're not going to be in the workplace all the time, involvement in the planning process, and then also tips on staying safe in an emergency. So this is kind of just to do with, like specifics around what happens essentially if you get stuck somewhere and you and the person that you are responsible for helping cannot move out of that space. Like you have to call somebody, like it's just kind of the process for that. And then added supporting documents, and as well a worker's emergency self-evaluation assessment form. So this is for somebody who, may be looking to get an independent response plan, and it basically just allows them, individual response plan. It allows them to fill it out, and just identify some of the things that they might need to consider in the event of an emergency. So the last one, the accommodations in the workplace policy. This one, again, is an internal policy, but this is one that is required. So it's basically how we ensure a barrier-free employment process, as well as barrier-free access to facilities, services, and goods that are free from discrimination, which is required under the Ontario Human Rights Code, as well as the AODA and the IASR. So for this one, I added a purpose section. Again, made a statement of commitment section. This was kind of just to keep things consistent across the different policies, as well as the scope section. I expanded the legislative authority to include more information specifically to the duty, specifically relating to the duty to accommodate. I added a definition section with accommodation types, documented individual accommodation plan, and the duty to accommodate. The duty to accommodate specifically entails what the employer has to do. So this is kind of why the plan exists in the first place. It has a lot to do with that particular legislative requirement, as well as the IASR. There is an accommodation process that was added to kind of detail what people have to do if they're looking to receive accommodations. And then I also added a statement that basically outlines confidentiality and basically just that like all accommodation requests will be taken seriously and no one will be penalized for making an accommodation request. Responsibility section was expanded. So there have been some minor changes that were made in those sections. And then I also included a supporting document section with related policies and procedures, so people can reference the other ones that we have in place that are relevant to this particular policy. I believe that is everything. So hopefully that wasn't too much information all at once, but if anyone has any comments, feedback, or input on the policies, I'm happy to take that. Otherwise, I'll pass it over to the chair. Thank you.
Again, Sarah, thank you. Well done. I have no problem with it, but I'll open the floor. Oh, I'm seeing heads nodding in agreement. So sounds like a job well done. So appreciate that. Jana, please.
Sure. Be it resolved that the report titled Updates to the Accessibility Policy, Emergency Response Policy, and Accommodations Policy dated November 7th, 2023 from the Accessibility Coordinator be reviewed and forwarded to Council for approval.
Mover and seconder, please. Moved by Jen, second by Dave. All in favor? Carries. Thank you. I have another one. I think it's just a verbal. Go ahead, Sarah.
Thank you. So this is I think the verbal updates, right? So we are. Sorry? Yeah, okay, perfect. I was trying to follow along on my agenda. So, okay, so basically I just wanted to give a few updates so everybody kind of knows what's going on right now. So two of the kind of bigger projects that are sort of coming up is the joint annual accessibility status report. So for those of you that aren't completely familiar with this, this is basically a requirement that we have to do annually to demonstrate that the county and its local municipal partners are committed to the goals that we set out in our joint multi-year accessibility plan. So the draft of the report has already been created for 2023, and I think two of our local partners have actually already submitted their list. So essentially, it just includes all of the highlights for accessibility initiatives that we've completed throughout 2023. Reminders will be sent out. The report is usually completed in early 2024, and then it will be brought to the advisory committee sometime in February to March. So you guys will get to approve that before it goes to council. The accessibility compliance report. So this is something that's done on a biannual basis. And basically we have to complete separate compliance reports and submit it to the Ministry for Seniors and Accessibility by December 31st. So there's quite a few that have already submitted theirs. The county is one of them. But if there is any local partners that would like to have some additional support with this, I have extended that offer and will extend it again. And then if not, the HR department will be able to help if needed. So yeah, I will just basically oversee this to make sure that everybody has their report completed by the deadline. One thing to note that it does seem like the rotation is completely random, but there is a possibility of being desk audited. So this is basically where the ministry reaches out and it requests specific information surrounding certain questions regarding accessibility. So I have made it known to the local partners to start being a little bit more diligent about keeping track of anything relating to accessibility projects that could fall to the scope of the legislation. And this is just because they're becoming a lot more specific now. So they're asking for pictures, they're asking for, specific consultation documents, they're asking for proof that you actually, completed the project as intended, stuff like that. So yeah, I just wanted to make sure that's kind of kept at the forefront of everybody's mind with respects to accessibility projects that are ongoing. So that's pretty much it for that. For other general updates, so the advisory committee, as you know, very unfortunately is down a member. And so we will probably want to look to recruit another person. I don't know that it will start, if it will start this year, if it'll start early next year. But either way, I will communicate with the communications coordinator and talk about setting up some advertising online, as well as the HR department to kind of determine how they want to approach that. I do have a copy of an application already. So if anyone knows anybody and wants to send the application along to them, just let me know and I can provide you with a copy of that. And then the other update I wanted to give, there's an elevator project that you may have realized has been ongoing in this building. And so very fortunately, the north entrance elevator is actually completed now, as well as a new front entrance for that side of the building. We are not done on the south side yet, but it should be hopefully in the next few months, I'm assuming. That being said, the old elevator on that side is not in service anymore. But this is great news because obviously it makes the building way more accessible. And there is also accessible parking spaces near the entrance. So that is good. We're very excited about that. So this is maybe one of the more unfortunate updates. So as you guys may have heard, my position is actually going to come to an end on November 30th. So the Alga County Human Resources Department is going to continue to provide the same supports and services regarding accessibility. They're also working to determine the way forward and more details will be provided in 2024. So I will send out an email closer to the end of the month to provide some information. Amy, who is my boss, and also the director of HR will be the point of contact. I am available to provide support obviously until the end of the month. So, please reach out if you have any questions or if there's anything you think needs to be taken to this committee for consultation. And I did want to say that, it's been a complete privilege to work with everybody on this committee. So, thank you. I'm really grateful that I had this opportunity and I really appreciate all of your contributions to accessibility. So yeah, on that note, I did want to make a quick mention. There are some stuff that's kind of in the works right now. Obviously, not all of it will get to be completed by the time I'm done, but I will note that there is going to be a website redevelopment project. That's the big one that's being worked on right now. And we're hoping to have the website relaunched for Elgin County by mid 2024. So I will kind of talk to them to indicate, how the advisory committee maybe should be involved, at least in kind of giving a sign off, perhaps on the colors, that kind of thing. We're also looking to refresh the logo. So more information will come out on that, I'm sure. And then as far as other projects go, I'll be tying up anything relating to DEI accessibility as much as I can between now and the 30th. So yeah, I know it's maybe not the most hopeful news, but yeah, please feel free to ask questions and I'll try to answer them if I can. And of course, Amy will be there to support everybody going forward. So yeah, I'm quite confident that my HR team will be able to do a good job with managing the transition. So yeah, that's all for my updates. Thanks.
Sarah, you caught me by surprise. I was not aware of that. But all I can say is you've done a great job for us. I appreciate it. And certainly all the best in your future. Now, back to the presentation. Any comments from Dave or Jen?
Other than I've really appreciated working with you and I think you've done a marvelous job and I'm not sure how we're gonna replace you, to tell you the truth. I think you've been a valuable asset to the people with accessibility needs in our area. And I wish you all the best. And if you've got a clone you want to send our way, by all means.
All right, now I think that was just for information, so there's no resolution. Other business, item 7. Do I have any other business? Not aware of any. Correspondence? I don't, none. No need to go into closed meeting. All right, we're down to date of our next meeting. Do we have a date or is it just call the chair or?
I think the next meeting will probably be sometime early, like I would say February, March, when the status report is ready to be reviewed. Yeah, that's my guess, unless one of the either Central Elgin or County of Elgin like facilities or maintenance or engineering lets us know that there's a project that needs to be consulted on in the meantime.
All right, I'll give the opportunity for any more comments. None. We're at the point of adjournment. Moved by Dave, second by Jen. All in favor? Carried. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for your time and attention. Appreciate it. Have a good afternoon. Thank you.